Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
Hi, Paul Fife here, host of the show where I interview business leaders heading up mission-focused organizations in the nonprofit space, always leading from the heart and making a difference in their communities. Today, I'll be covering, our top frequently asked questions from organizations deciding whether to hire an agency or not. And before we get into that, today's episode is sponsored by none other than Paul Gregory Media, also affectionately known as PGM, a long-established marketing firm devoted to nonprofits and mission-based organizations. PGM is also one of 1,000, or actually several thousand organizations throughout the world putting people and planet over profit. So to find out more about what it means to be a B Corp and some of the services that PGM offers, visit paulgregorymedia.com. So with me today is Marissa Schmidt, PGM's own marketing director. And I thought we would just sit here and have a conversation about some of the most popular questions we get as an agency. So thanks for joining me, Marissa.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Awesome. So you've been with PGM now for 5 years now?
5 years. Yeah. Yeah. Started as an intern in 2018, and here I am, a marketing director in 2023. It's absolutely wild.
And here you are. Yeah. And so over those 5 years, I mean, we've gotten a lot of questions. I would say half of them are probably revolve around price, right? Because people are searching for a freelancer, or they're deciding whether to hire in-house or hire an agency. And we can probably even touch on some of the benefits of using an agency over, say, a freelancer. But we've collected right before this, some of the top questions that we've seen, maybe 5 of them that we can tackle in this particular podcast. And then maybe if we didn't hit on enough of them, we can create another one.
Sounds good.
So we have 2 kinds of clients, right? Nonprofit clients and for-profit clients that are pretty mission-based and very philanthropic. And for the nonprofits, we find that they pretty much have 3 concerns. Awareness, because how many times do we hear, we're the best kept secret, right? And it frustrates them, right? So, and we hear that all the time. So awareness and building awareness around is their number one concern, because with that, they're able to they now have an opportunity to create a better funding source and fundraising, which leads to capacity, right? Because the more they can do, the more they need the funds, the more they're able to support their beneficiaries. And then what's the third? Volunteer recruitment for some of them, right? Some of them rely on volunteers. How many times do we hear, how do we get more volunteers for our organization? And then other organizations are like, no, we've got enough. We're very well known. We just need the awareness and the capacity building and the funding so that we can do more or have a further reach.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, it's trust, credibility, genuinely connecting with your community are those top 3 things that nonprofit orgs are like, how do we keep doing this? And how do we stand out? Because there's a lot of nonprofits in the world. So it's like, how does your story get heard? Right.
Yeah. That's a good point. And sometimes they even know what to do. They just don't have the time to do it. Right?
Exactly. And that's where your agency comes in and scoops up and helps you through this, navigating everything with the digital marketing world. Yeah.
I think on the other side of the coin is the for-profit businesses that are out there. And what we hear a lot from them, I think more often than not, is how do I get more sales? How do I get more clients? Because everybody wants that, right? In the for-profit world. But what's confusing about that is they sometimes look at us as a sales organization to develop sales leads and clients, and we're not, right? If somebody says, well, we've done this marketing campaign, but we didn't get a single client. Well, that's because we're not a sales organization. We're a marketing organization. We're going to build your awareness. We're going to feed you leads, but it's up to you or your website or whatever the channel is to close and convert those, right? And if they're not converting, then we can certainly help with that too. If their landing page needs to be tweaked or their website's not converting enough, there's things that we can do to, of course, help that.
Yeah, it's all about solving the customer's problem, right? And having that strong call to action, especially in the for-profit world. Yeah.
And we certainly have our share of for-profit clients, all of which are very philanthropic and giving and active in the community, which is why we love working with them. And even a nonprofit should have a lot of those business tenants, right? They need to be able to generate revenue so they can keep doing what they're doing. So there's, an 80% overlap, I think, between those types of organizations as far as we're concerned in the marketing world.
Yeah, I would say so. Mm-hmm.
So let's get right down to it. The 5 most frequently asked questions. And we'll start with the I'm such a best kept secret. So awareness, right? What are some effective ways that an agency can build awareness for a nonprofit organization?
Yeah. So social media will be your best friend. Blog posts, that thought leadership piece, just incorporating all of those together will really help prop you up and build that awareness piece. And everyone says that they're the best kept secret, but it's those touch points, right? So how often are you posting on social media? Are you doing your email campaigns in the right audience? And is it the right, message that's crafted? There's all these pieces that help you build that awareness and that trust and credibility. And that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think I'll even add on to that in that content strategy is so important.
Absolutely.
Because I see a lot of people posting on social or creating blog posts or creating emails and then next week doing it again. And then the next week doing it again or monthly, whatever the cadence is. But there's no real strategy behind it, right? And so one of the advantages I think we can bring to the table is that we are always thinking about how does this fit into the overall strategic plan and developing goals.
Yes.
And probably a big part of that is we don't typically recommend preaching to the same choir every time, right? So even though engagement is probably one of our number one key performance indicators, I would say that engagement is probably number one. Under that would be growth, right? Because we want the engagement, but we don't want the same people engaged all the time. We also want to grow that audience. So in order to grow an audience, you have to think outside of your current audience. And the only way to do that is through advertising, boosting posts, and using those channels, right? And so we certainly will put together a budget, I guess, to say, all right, if we want to grow our audience, and so you're not the best kept secret, let's say it's countywide or statewide, here are some avenues that we need to budget for the coming year.
Yeah, like organic reach is great and all, but sometimes you do need that little boost and that help with the ad spend to get you out there, cast you out to a wider net of audience. Yeah.
Right. And I'm always heard saying that, what is it? People used to visit the digital world, but thanks to COVID, we now live there, right? Everything is digital. We get our weather, we get our news, we get our social media, we get our, looking at websites, researching things on Google. We are always on our devices, and now through programmatic advertising platforms and social media advertising platforms, we're able to reach people wherever they are on whatever they're doing.
Yeah, and especially if you have specified targets, you can reach the people that you are trying to, like a certain group with programmatic advertising, for example. Like we can get really specific on who we want to reach and target with all these different goals too.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects I love about digital marketing, because before you even spend money or decide what your budget's going to be, we can tell them, all right, how many impressions do you want to get? How many people do you want to reach?
Yeah, the forecasting.
And how many people do you want coming to your website, clicking on your website? So we know what the average click-through rate is nationwide, and we know what the impressions will be before you even decide if you want to proceed with a campaign. Like, let's see what happens if we spend $1,000 versus $500 or versus $10,000. So I love that about digital advertising. That works for Facebook or Google Ads or programmatic. So that's always very, very effective. So yeah, you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said social media is probably the most cost-effective way, especially organic, to build awareness, and then using boosting. And sometimes we find boosting even more effective than ad campaigns.
Yeah.
Especially in the realm of fundraising.
Yes. Especially if you have a moving animation or video, that's going to capture the attention way more than a static graphic would.
Sure. Always makes you stop the scrolling, right?
That's the goal, right?
I love that. So So to build awareness, social media is the most effective platform out there. And to grow your audience, using either the social platforms to develop boosting or ads, or using programmatic, which has been around for about 5 years or more, but it's been so widely used in the last couple of years because we could reach anybody on any platform at any time. And even like if you have a good mailing list, you can upload that email list and do what's called a lookalike campaign, right? Where people that fit that profile on Facebook, if their email address is associated with a Facebook account or a Google account, we know a lot about them, or they do. And we could say, all right, find other people like this. And so you're reaching a like audience that you already have built into your email list. That I find fascinating. That
The
geofencing.
retargeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Absolutely. If they visited your website once, let's say it's a gala or an event coming up in a month, and then you target them with ads and say, hey, don't forget about our gala. Hey, don't forget about our event. So there's lots of tricks out there to making that best kept secret not a secret anymore. And that's one of the major, I think, concerns that we always hear from nonprofits.
Yeah, I would agree. You hit the nail on the head there too.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. We also get, in terms of donors and corporate sponsors, like what are the best donation platforms out there? We hear that a lot. How do I get donations? A lot of them that are just starting out or are smaller use PayPal. And I don't never like that as a marketing agency because you go off the site and it's not a branded experience. You might have a logo there or something, but that's about it. So let's talk about some of the ones that we see a lot out there.
Yeah. So enterprise management system is like a nice term to coin for this, but like Donor Perfect, Network for Good, these are CRMs that keep all of your donor information and everything in kind of like a funnel, and everything is it's a seamless experience. So it's just one whole hub where you have all the information you need. There's not multiple things going on. So that would be, you want a well-oiled machine. So a CRM like one of those would be great to start, but also GiveWP is a phenomenal plugin with WordPress. And you can do a lot of donation forms. There's robust reporting. You can personalize the experience if you want to give an e-card, or if you want to say in memoriam of. There's just so many ways that you can personalize that giving experience, and that's really key for nonprofits.
Yeah, that's true. Let's unpack the enterprise management systems for a second, because I also sometimes they're called ERPs or I guess I don't even know what that means. Enterprise resource platform or something.
Yeah.
But it's because it has the donation platform, it has the donor database, or otherwise known as a customer resource manager, or basically it's your customers, your donors, which also ties into other modules within that.
Emails, landing pages, your website, everything is just,
all that. And like Blackbot is very well known for that. What I found, though, over the last 17 years is that not a lot of nonprofits use those other modules. They plan to, and they're paying these exorbitant fees for this great tool, but they're not using it all. Right. And so, we've been able to save clients a lot of money by saying, listen, if you're not using those other things, we have a much better donor experience by using GiveWP, which is a little tiny plugin that is so customizable down to the granular level, that works right within your website, a WordPress website, by the way, and we'll get into that platform in a second. But it works right within your website. So it's a very branded and seamless experience, and all the reporting and everything is done right on your website. So if you can log into your WordPress site, you can get all these reports, and it works with any, what do they call, merchant provider, right? So Stripe, Square, PayPal, even in the background to process those transactions. So whatever you already have probably works with GiveWP.
Yeah, most likely. And you want to think too, like nonprofits, of course, they want new donors. They want to retain donors. So you want to have that strong landing page and all those integrations connected in there as soon as they make a donation. Okay, so that triggers the thank you for donating to our cause. That way you start that relationship and you have that strong connection with the donor. So that's really important to consider too.
Yeah. And we're not really captive to any one platform or another. We're really more interested in steering them in the right direction and make sure it's going to be utilized to its fullest.
Yep.
I think some of the automation features are what excites me, because when we tell clients what can be possible For example, on GiveWP, and a lot of these enterprise systems do it too. Imagine making a donation and then being able to immediately get an email saying, here's your IRS tax receipt.
Yeah.
Right. And then 6 months goes by and you're like, crap, I forgot where that email is. And you can log in on that same site and say, let me look at my donation history. You don't have to remember passwords or anything. You just put in your email address and it'll email you a secret link that has a password built in. And it gives you your donation history. Or if you're doing a recurring donation, like a monthly donation, you can suspend it or increase it, hopefully, or decrease it. I wish some of the ones that I did monthly donations to had that feature that I could actually manage it as opposed to having to make a phone call. So it's a all-in-one portal for the donor that you don't have to bother the staff to say, can you send me another IRS tax receipt, or can you tell me what my password is, or can you look up my donation history? All those questions are now self-service.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I see eyes light up when we say that to our clients. They're like, oh, this would make our lives so much easier, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So number 3, get this all the time. How much does a website cost? What do you have to say about that one?
I mean, it's like a house, right? So where's your house located? There's so many rooms in your house. There's all these things you're building in your rooms. So it's not a one size fits all. It's very custom. And there's a lot that goes into it. There's content strategy, there's website development, there's the design. There's so many things that people just think, oh, that's easy. Like, we can get that done quickly. Sometimes it's 2 months. Sometimes it's a year-long process. You just never know how many pages you need and all the different content. And you need to think for each page. Is it SEO friendly? Is there a call to action that makes sense? Is this guiding our customer like through, or a viewer through each page of the website? We want them to remain on the page, right? We don't want them to bounce off. So when it comes to like website cost, it's very, year to year, it's going to change about $1,000 a page, I'd say, depending on the.
Ooh, now we're getting into the real heart of it, right?
I know.
It's so much to consider, but at the end of the day, it comes down to a proposal that we have to have a scoping meeting, right? We have to understand like what features they want, what benefits they want, what's the user experience going to look like, how many pages is also important. What do those pages do? Is there a calendar of events? Is there a blog? Is there integration into Salesforce or other type of applications? Is there a chat bot? Is there, on and on and on. And then once we list all those things, we can do it. And that process can take a week or two. But in the phone call, we always like to give them an idea, a general idea of costs, because we're never afraid to talk about money on the first conversation, right? Because we want to give people, we want to set some expectations. So you went right into it and started at about $1,000 a page, which is pretty good estimate for, say, a 15 to 30 page website, right? Bigger sites or enterprise sites. We just did one for a university that went way more than that. Those can go into the hundreds of thousands. But like what I call brochure site, that has some functionality, 15 to 30 pages. I think that's a good estimate, right? $1,000 a page, maybe starting at 6,000 because there's so much that goes into content strategy and design before we ever put pen to paper. So 6,000 is probably the minimum we would ever do. And any agency probably wouldn't touch a website for under 10,000. We work for nonprofits, so they have a different scale and different budgets at times. So $1,000 per page. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, sweet spot. You were hitting the mark with 10K or above, because it's a lot of work, and you want to make sure your copy is talking to the right audience. There's so many considerations too with design. You want to be a little bit different than the average nonprofit out there or mission-based for profit. Like what's your unique look, right?
Right, because we don't template anything, right? We don't use templates or whatever. I had somebody ask me today, what does copy mean? So we should probably explain to our viewers that copy means the text on the page. I think it's short for copywriting, but not copywriting GH, but copywriting WRITE. So the actual writing of the text. Anyway, the sweet spot, or I should say, not the sweet spot, the average spend, if we were to take the last 5 years, the average spend for a 15-page website is about $15,000 to $18,000. It depends on if we're doing some of that writing and content strategy or not. And typically, all that has to be done first. So we have to we have to go through the content strategy, figure out what the copy is going to be, lay out all the pages. Once that's done, we can pretty much get a 15 to 20 page website done in about 10 days, which is
yeah.
what I love about.
We like to do the content strategy first, and then you hand it over to the designer on a silver platter. Like, here's everything, and then they just take it and put it into the pages. Yeah.
Right. I want to add a caveat that prices do go up every year. So if this podcast is 5 years old, prices are probably going to be a little bit higher or adjusted for that. So 15 to 30. I had something else I was going to say about that. Yeah, with the content strategy, it could take up to 10 days. Once we say go, what I love about the way we work is we've been doing this for 17 years, but in the beginning, we would do the design in Photoshop. And then we would present that on a PowerPoint presentation. And then we would sit down with the client in person, and they would mark down what they liked, what they didn't like. We would swap out a photo here. We would reword a paragraph there. And then we'd hand it back to our designer. They'd redesign, and then it would go from the designer to the developer, and then he'd program the heck out of that. Now we're building using visual builders, which are much quicker, and it's an actual development server. So users aren't looking at pictures anymore. Our clients are actually interacting with a real website on their mobile device and on their desktop, so they can actually see the animations and the rollover effects and the dynamic effects that are added to so they're actually seeing it and approving it and revising it in real time.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, I don't like the way this flips over when you hover it. So we'll change that. And we'll say, all right, refresh the screen, take a look at it and see what you think. No. So it's a whole different way of doing websites from, say, 7 or even 8 years ago, where everything was static and then it was approved and then you put in the dynamic effects. Now it's just done as we build it. What the benefit of that is you get the benefit of a developer and a designer working on the site at the same time. They're no longer working in these silos, which I like.
Yeah. It's collaboration across the board for sure with the website.
Yeah. And it should be, right? Because it's your biggest digital asset. And everything leads to that. Social media points to a blog post that points to that. And your advertising points to that. And it's so important. That's not even to mention, once the site's done, there's other costs that need to be figured or factored into budget too, right?
Yes. So web maintenance is very important because there's a lot of moving parts in WordPress or any kind of website. Like plugins could take down a whole site if you aren't updating them. And that's what our team does. We just make sure everything in the back end looks good. And that, we build custom plans with that as well, depending on how large the site is and everything that goes with that. So like security, we just make sure your site is secure at all times. If it ever goes down for some reason, it's up very quickly because we get those notifications. So we're on top of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
A plugin can go out of date in a moment's notice, and then it takes the site down. So, or it's not compatible with the PHP version you're using, or not compatible with the SQL version you're using. So I know maintenance should be factored in there, and that could be a couple $100 a month to even up to $1,000 a month, where you have somebody internal doing that as well, but they have to be well versed in the content management platform, and updating that usually bi-weekly is a good cadence.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then we also get like, what CMS is the best? And CMS is a content management system. It's basically a database, because all websites are not static anymore. They're fed from a database, so they're dynamic. Yeah. And we get the question like, which hosting or which content management system is the best out there? And there's a couple, right? There's WordPress, there's Joomla, there's Drupal. I guess those are the top 3 that are out there.
No, I would say Ionos is
Ionos really is a hosting company, right? Not a platform. Although they do have a website builder too. So I guess we could technically consider them a CMS platform, as well as I think GoDaddy has one as well.
Oh, true. Yeah. But WordPress is the best.
Acquia was another one out there. I guess they're all good if you know them. The problem is not everybody knows Drupal or Acquia or what's the other one? Joomla. And if you do have somebody or a team that knows it and that's a platform, then that's great. They're great systems out there. But if you really, we find our clients, they do under $40 million a year. Some do around that. A lot of them do like under $1 million a year. So WordPress is probably going to be a better option for them, because there's so much third-party support out there, right?
Yeah. And we know firsthand too with the client who was on Drupal and we kind of had to say, there's not a lot of support here. There's not a lot of people that can help build out this website with Drupal. So we kind of had to pivot and say WordPress is probably the best way to go. And that actually, there was a lot more people available to help because they know WordPress more than like Drupal or Acquia.
Right. So if anything happened with your agency partnership and it dissolved for whatever reason, you can go down the street and find 5 more WordPress.
Right. Yeah.
Good ones, maybe one in 5, right?
Yeah.
All right. So question number 4, how much does a marketing agency cost for general marketing? We get that question a lot. I want to hire a marketing agency because I understand the benefit of having a team of people instead of just hiring a freelancer that may have 1 or 2 skill sets. And that always warms our heart because we know we have a great team that can do multiple things. We actually consider ourselves a full service agency that's able to help all aspects of marketing. And the question comes like, well, how much is a good spend for that? And how do you answer that for those clients?
Yeah. So we can do one-off projects. We've done them. Retainers are really the best choice because, you could start at $2,000 and go upward of $10,000, $12,000. Really just depends. Sweet spots like $6,000 to $8,000 a month with nonprofits. And the beauty is you never use it or lose it kind of thing. It rolls over to the next month. And then we can literally do anything. So if you need a brochure, we can do that within the retainer. If you need an email campaign, we can do that within the retainer rather than having these one-offs. So I always say retainer is the best way to go. Yeah,
because it almost is like you're not nickel and diming every week and saying, okay, you want to do these things, it's going to cost this much, and then negotiation. If you have a retainer, it's just deducted from that retainer amount. Like I said, $2,000 to start with some of our clients, and the sweet spot's probably around $4,000 to $6,000 a month. But you can do so much because what we can do in an hour might take a freelancer probably 5 hours. And I've seen that time and time again. Oh, this person's been working on a brochure for 5 hours, or not a brochure, a flyer for 5 hours for an event promotion. And we know we could bang that thing out in probably 45 minutes to an hour. And we keep meticulous timesheets, right?
Yep.
So we're always able to prove to the client, like, here's exactly when it was worked on, how much minutes were spent. And then they get a report like that at the end of the month that says, okay, here's what we spent and here's what it is against the retainer. What I also love is you did mention use or lose.
Yeah.
Right. We don't do that. So it keeps rolling over month to month, year to year. And if it's starting to roll over too much, we'll just suspend billing. We'll say, hey, we've got, you guys got a $20,000 credit. We're suspending billing. We'll suspend it way before that just to catch up. And if it goes the other way where we're doing a lot more than the retainer allowed, we'll have a conversation with them later on and say, hey, if you got a couple slow months coming up, we'll just absorb it in those slow months or write another check, Yeah,
we're very flexible with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the last question, and this goes more towards the for-profit companies are like, I want more clients. I want more sales. How do we build up awareness to tee up those clients? How do we build up awareness to tee up the clients for more sales? I guess is the question we get a lot from for-profit companies. And again, I got to make that distinction, right? We're not a sales organization, but what's your initial response to that?
Yeah. I mean, we can build the awareness through social media, through SEO, through advertising, through collateral, like stuff like that. But again, we're getting your name out there. We're telling people what you're about. We cannot guarantee that that's going to be a sale or be a new donor. We are only just putting you out there in the best light and seeing what sticks, right? So
right. It almost goes back to our first question, awareness for the nonprofit. Like, we're the best kept secret. We can apply those same tactics to this question, which is how do I tee up more clients, which is social media, advertising, grow your audience through advertising or boosts. SEO is extremely important. I don't think we touched on that in the beginning, but SEO, how do you optimize your site so that people that are searching for your particular services or products are finding you and you're on the second or third or fourth or even first spot on Google? That's a huge boost because we could tell you what keyword people are searching and what the search volume is. And we always want to go for the highest search volume per month with the lowest competition, right?
Yep, right.
Which is hard to do with some organizations, especially in the Midwest, but it definitely can be done. And then, of course, collateral, right? Whether that's hard collateral like brochures or PDF brochures or your actual branding and your messaging. What is your story? There's a whole bunch of things that kind of help in that regard, all teeing up to one thing, directing them to a phone call, directing them to a chat, directing them to a form, or directing them to the website, right?
Yep. To learn
Yep.
more, to get involved. Yep.
Yep. And then what happens that from that point on, it's not hands off because we build websites, we build landing pages, we know what resonates, we know how to tell a story. And so that's where we could help then convert.
Yes.
And again, at some point in the conversion, unless it's an online sale, they're going to have to talk to, or they're going to want to talk to a business representative, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we can also kind of, with those chat bots too, that's something that we can put on your site. So you can field those questions before you talk to the salesperson and, kind of know what's coming. Right. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out today and just having this conversation with me. I think it's going to help a lot of people with some of those initial questions they might have with an agency. Now, you've been here, you said 5 years. What's your favorite part of, not to put you on the spot, because we didn't actually talk about this before, but what's your favorite part of being a marketing director and working for PGM?
Well, gosh, I love how we're focused on nonprofits because it's such rewarding work. And I really like, just in marketing general, it's different every day. There's a new task. It's not verbatim. It's you have to use critical thinking. You have to be flexible. You have to pivot when needed. And like as a project manager, there's quite a lot I've learned in that regard. But yeah, I would just say that's my favorite part of being a marketing director and in the field.
In the field, yeah. So
yeah.
I'll even add to that because I heard you say it once. I think one of the reasons why you pursued a position here was because we worked with nonprofits and you felt like you would be making a difference in the community and people's lives. So that always touched me. And I think a lot of people that work here feel that way too.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, another successful episode. Thanks for joining us today. Till next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.